Florida State and Alabama. An early line came out for that. Opened up at 7.5. Now, some books you mentioned to me have that up to 8.5. But does it surprise you that, I mean, and we can talk more about this game for a little bit, but does it surprise you that they only think that Bama's about a touchdown or maybe 10 points on a neutral field better than Florida State when they open this lineup?
So if you were to ask me what I thought the spread would be when it came out, even the early spread, I would have thought 13 and a half, 14 and a half. I just, based on Florida State coming off a 2-win season, Alabama had a horrible year by their standards, but still had a really good year and barely missed out on the playoffs. Yeah, no, it's a little surprising to me. And, you know, there's a lot that can happen between now and August. And I've never been someone to bet, the early market spreads or early, in January and February and whatnot. I just don't do it because there's so much that can change, especially now more than ever with the transfer portal, um, injuries in spring. A lot can happen. So I refuse to bet this. But if I were to bet it, if, gun to my head, I would put a lot of money on Alabama. They
Oh, that's not what the people want to hear.
right now. I'm going to be honest with our listeners always, but that's just how I feel. And hopefully, when it gets closer to the season, we go through spring and fall camp, and I feel a lot better. Maybe Castellanos really surprises me, and I'm like, okay, this guy with Gus Malzahn, maybe we have something cooking here, and we could win this game. I mean, I'll be in Tallahassee. I'm sure you will. I'm sure we'll have a big tailgate for all of our listeners to come join. But yeah, as of right now, this moment, I just don't see this spread how it makes sense.
If you're betting on the NFC or AFC championship games, if you're betting on tennis at 3 a.m. in another country, if you're betting on the NBA, NHL, MLB coming up here in the summer, March Madness, whatever, make sure you're betting with our friends over at BetUS. YouTube 150 will get you 150% sign up bonus. It'll get you 125% on your second and third deposits, all that up to $2,000. Appreciate BetUS for their support. Well, what I think is interesting is I don't know what may have outside of like a huge injury, right,
Yeah.
to a starting quarterback or something like that. I don't really know, other than the public, what's going to move this line because Florida State doesn't even have a spring game for us to see, right? And
Yeah.
even with that, we've seen spring games that look terrible and the team will go out and be amazing. And we've seen spring games that looked amazing and the team will go out and be terrible, right? And so Norvell didn't even really do a spring game. I don't even really have a ton of thoughts on the spring game not happening. It's people are upset. I understand it's, business away from places like Garnet and Gold and others. But with the renovations and stuff and how bad the team was, I don't know how big of a weekend it was going to be anyway. But all that said, like without having a spring game, without them being seen, and yeah, I mean, Alabama is going to have a spring game, but are you really going to see a lot from that changes your mind about the game?
No.
Like, you're not going to see their spring game and see the thing jump up by 6 points or something dumb. So 7.5 is interesting. Again, 8.5 now. I think there's just so many unknowns, right?
Yeah.
Who is Bama's quarterback? How does Florida State look? And again, without a spring game, without that being open or televised, again, this is not like blaming anyone for this, but everything we heard, the reports coming out of the spring and fall were that Florida State was going to be really good. Obviously, like not just from the beat, but from Norvell, from Vegas, from Nick
National writers.
Saban.
Yeah.
Yeah, like everybody thought Florida State was going to be. So like, who even cares like what the reports say, unless it's, okay, more of the same from last year. Like if the B reporters start saying, it's more of the same from last year, then I think we are in trouble.
Yeah.
But there are so many question marks heading into this one because, Richie, how many new starters on offense are we going to see? Well, at least one at quarterback. Lawrence Toafili gone. So there's a new starter at one of the running back positions. Maybe probably two new wide receivers with Deuce and Squirrel and like Hakeem maybe is your third. So like, two new receivers, a new tight end, right? With Morlock gone because he was your starter to start the year.
Yeah.
Now Landon will be in there, but that's still not who started last year. And then probably 4 new offensive linemen. Like what did I just mention? Like 3 guys back starting that started last year. And so Roydell Williams, maybe Richie Leonard, and Hakeem Williams. You got 3 starters back on offense that opened the year last year in Dublin. And then what about on defense? Well, the secondary is mostly the same, but you lost a couple of guys there, Azariah Thomas and Fintrell Cypress. At linebacker, there's going to be a little bit more consistency. 4 brand new guys on the defensive line. 3, I'm sorry, Daryl Jackson coming back. So 3 new starters there, 2 new corners, 1 new linebacker. Will safety move around? Probably not. So you're talking like 5 or 6 new starters on defense, 8 new starters on offense. There's 14 of 22. And your best 2 players, right? I'm not trying to make a joke or troll. Your best 2 players on last year's team no longer on the team, your kicker and your punter. So there's 24 of 20, or, of your 24 starters, you're talking about like 18 of them being new. So I don't know. How do you even project what Florida State's going to look like?
Yeah, it's tough. And, I know you said Daryl Jackson's coming back, and I think he does, but with his history, we'll see. I'm going to pump the brakes on that until we get out of the next transfer section. But
not buying it just yet.
Yeah, no, we'll see. Again, no, that's no inside information. I'm not trying to make any hints or anything, but just when it comes to South Florida players, you just have to understand you're going to deal with that every single year. But yeah, a completely new lineup. And honestly, TJ, a completely new coaching staff, if you really think about it, with a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator. They're going to have a new receivers coach. There's a lot going on that really makes this team, very intriguing to me. I'm excited for the season a ton, but not because I think, oh, we're going to make a run at the college football playoff. But I'm really excited for the season just to see what does this new version of Florida State football look like, because it's going to be completely different from Mike Norvell's previous 5 years. It just is, and there's no way around it. And that kind of gets me super intrigued. And I hope that Alabama game, even if Florida State loses, if they keep that game close, gives me hope for the rest of the season. Now, if you go on and September, 1-3, all right, now I'm out again. I'll still watch every game because I don't care if we win 0-12, I'd watch every game. But at the same time, there's so much intrigue to what could potentially be heading into the season. And I just cannot wait for it.
Yeah. We're getting a couple of comments about like, who cares about, we're not saying that Florida State didn't need to have, we're in full agreement. Like, it's a good thing that there's going to be 16 of 24. Like, that's a good thing that no one from, or very few people from last year's team are starting again. I think we're just asking the question of, how do you even know what they're going to look like is more the big question. I mean, I would be fine if we had 22 new starters on this team after a 2-10 season. That's not realistic. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a great thing that Florida State completely flipped the roster, because whatever the heck they did last year didn't work. The questions around who's going to be the quarterback for Bama, how does that shape out? How does that work out is a big one. Obviously they've relied on Milroe for a few years now with some mixed results, some really, really good, some really, really bad.
Spring too.
Yeah. I think that, I think it's as bad as he's been. Not having to face his legs is probably a good thing in my mind. Them trying to figure out who their quarterback is a good thing for Florida State. And also, I honestly think that not having, I've heard some, talk of, could they move something to a week 0? I wouldn't want a week 0 this year. Like, no. I don't want to have Bama see anything before we play them. Now, I know you get the benefit of playing an earlier game if you were to do that, but I like that. Tickets are going to be insane for this game. They already are insane. Like, if you go on StubHub and look at them, they are insane to see Alabama, Florida State in a fully renovated Doak with, like you just said, some excitement back around the program because of all of the changes. Change in and of itself isn't necessarily good or bad, but it does bring excitement. Like, just knowing that things aren't going to ideally look like they did last year brings some excitement. And so, if you're looking for tickets for that game, it's probably just going to be cheaper to get season tickets. So sign up to be a booster and get season tickets and sell the rest of them or give the rest of them away, and you will save money. So there's my plug for the boosters. Richie, any other thoughts on Bama before we move on?
No, just to your point, the boosters, they are not a sponsor of the show, but we are both uh, avid supporters. And to his point, are you going to pay $600 just to get a one game ticket to Alabama, or you could pay around 400 or $500 for season tickets? I think that's a pretty easy option for me.
Yeah, I would say get season tickets this year, and it gives back. It supports what the boosters are doing.